Sports Minutes with Ziaul Raushan.
Money FM 89.3. It's time for Sports Minutes with me, Ziaul Raushan. And just like that, the mayhem of the ASEAN Championship has subsided, making way for fresh impetus and excitement surrounding the resumption of the Singapore Premier League. And it was the Lion City Sailors who got the ball rolling, beating Brunei DPMM 4-2 on Monday to go top of the table with 2 games in hand. Now, in the past week, Sports Minutes has checked in with 3 coaches from the league, namely Noor Alam Shah, who returns to Tanjong Pagar United, Robert Iziako, who's made the step up to hopefully spearhead Hougang revival, and Mohammad Noor Ali of Geylang International. So be sure to check out those episodes on the playlist if you like. In the here and now, though, we'll hear from all 9 SPL clubs in terms of their fans weighing in on their expectations for their respective teams. But first, as we look ahead to the second half of the season, it's only right I welcome back to the Sports Minute studio a certain Deepanraj Ganesan. Deepan, how have you been and how excited are you for the return of the SPL?
Hi Raushan, pleasure to be here. Looking forward to the SPL resuming proper. I know DPMM and Sailors have already played, but I think to welcome back all the other clubs, I've been waiting for it for quite a long time now.
No, you're absolutely right. The mid-season break, I thought, will break the momentum, but we've been blessed with so much ins, outs, and storylines, and we're going to get stuck into it. Without further ado, we're going to make our way up the table, starting with the bottom club. Here's Tanjong Pagar fan Hakim on his hopes for Alam Shah's era at the club.
Hi Raushan, I believe I speak for all my guys in Sterling Curva and the supporters of Tanjong Pagar United in general. We just want the club to bounce back from the hell of the first half of the season. We've broken unwanted records, especially in the past 2 to 3 months, and we don't expect much from the team. Just for them and Coach Alam Shah to show the fight back and end the season on a positive note, preferably getting out of the bottom of the table. Show to the other teams what the Jaguar spirit is, a team that never gives up. And as a representative of Sterling Curva, I can guarantee you that we will always be behind the Jaguars, win, lose or draw.
Now, Deepan, we heard from the fan there, it's been quite a troubling state of affairs for the Jaguars, to say the least. But is the appointment of Noor Alam Shah the tonic they need, both in terms of familiarity as well as his ability?
Yeah, so I think with Noor Alam Shah, what they are getting is really the familiarity in terms of how they operate. But you say that, and then you factor in the fact that he's coming in from an environment where he learned a lot from at Tokyo Verdy. And like any good coach would do, you try to apply the best works of what you've learned at Tanjong Pagar. And just speaking to a few players at the club, I think there's been massive changes. I think the sort of word that I get from them is they've had a lot of adjusting to Noor Alam Shah's ways. I think he's sort of like come in and really galvanized the squad, the staff as well. I think the staff have basically, Alam Shah has basically demanded more from everybody, not just the players. So I think it's an environment now where players are looking forward to games, which might not have been the case not so long ago, because they were losing every game, they were conceding a high number of goals. But I think there's some positivity there, and I could feel it from just attending a training session.
Yeah, and just for the benefit of the listeners, before this recording, Deepan spent the morning in Jurong East Stadium, so he's had a first-hand look of this Tanjong Pagar team, and it seems like they're getting the proverbial kick up the backside ahead of this resumption of the season. They've signed a new goalkeeper in Matt Silva, and Noor Alam Shah more or less confirmed that it may be the only incoming transfer for the team, right? Is that enough to drag themselves off the foot of the table, because they're currently 10 points adrift of 8th place Young Lions?
Yeah, so it'll be tough, but I think what he's done with the Matt Silva signing is basically address what he feels is the most problematic area of the team. I think Fasha is going into coaching soon. Not sure if that means he's totally hung up his gloves. But they needed a goalkeeper, experienced goalkeeper, to basically come in and basically show up the backline and say that, you know what, like I'll handle this. They needed a leader at the back, basically. I think the other areas of the team, I think, of course, you know, the best thing would be for them to bolster various areas of the team. But I don't think they've got the necessary budget for that. And I mean, you think about it realistically, there's not many games left in the season, so it's more a case of whatever money that you have that may come in, possibly you keep it for next season to build from there. I think they've got some players that should step up. Tomoki comes to mind, the Japanese midfielder. I don't think he has really shined so far in the season. I think he needs to step up. Zenivio, I think, can do better. I think we've seen glimpses of what he can do. So all these players need to step up. And Salif Cisse, if he remains fit, could be a weapon for them up front. So there's all these players, younger players as well in the team who really have to step up and show Noor Alam Shah that they can be relied upon. So yes, maybe one major signing. I think also Raihan Rahman is coming back to Tanjung Pagar here. So maybe one or two local players coming in to sort of bolster the team. But I think the foreigners need to step up for Tanjung Pagar to have any chance.
Yeah, it does seem like Noor Alam Shah's KPI for the rest of the season will be consolidation and looking ahead beyond that. Speaking of looking ahead, they are looking up at the Young Lions. They had an eye-catching start to the season, right? 5 wins and 3 draws in the 19 games played. So what are their fans expecting in the weeks ahead? Let's have a listen.
Hello, I'm Sham, supporting the Young Lions. And my expectations for them for the rest of the season would be to continue the great run of results that they have done in the first half of the season to the second half. Obviously, replacing Itsuki Enomoto and Farhan Zulkifli will be a challenge, especially since they've been contributing to a lot of goals in that department. But hopefully, Nazri Nasir and his side can continue to grind out some results, including hopefully a couple of wins, to ensure that they don't be overtaken by Tanjung Pagar at the foot of the table at the end of the season.
Now, we heard from Sham there, who's obviously talking about the Young Lions and the start they've had to the season. With the Young Lions, we need to talk about their outgoings in terms of Itsuki Inamoto, who joined BG Tampines Rovers. Farhan Zulkifli has returned to Hougang United. Just 2 key players. How big a blow is that going to be to this Young Lions team?
Huge blow. I at this point can't see them picking up many points for the rest of the season. It's a comment that might come back to bite me. But I mean, just realistically looking at the team now, because if you are a player in the Young Lions setup, you always relied on Inamoto to get you the goals and Farhan to sort of be the exciting feature down the left or the right flank. They don't have that now. So where are the goals coming from? Where is the creativity coming from? I don't think Khan Kobayashi has really set the world alight at Young Lions. So yes, there's no departure in terms of like defense, no key departure in that area. But the attack, the sort of like exciting winger is the kind of players that you look forward to as a player, to give them the pass or set them up. When you don't have that focal point, then where do the balls go? So I think it's a worrying sign for them. And also I think there could be a managerial change. I hear that Nazri might be going off for another project related to UTR in Japan. That would probably mean that Fadzul comes in as an interim coach. So all these changes definitely do affect a team. I'm worried for them.
Yeah, you more or less answered in terms of what they have to do for the remaining 12 games. I have to ask you though, there was so much optimism with the first half of the season that Young Lions have. But based on everything you've said in terms of players leaving, coaches might be changing about, is it a case of same old again for the Young Lions where they are going to be that wooden spoon team?
Yeah, so I think where, just to inject a bit of positivity into this, I think this is where maybe some of the younger locals will get the chance to step up. Because now if you ask me, who is that replacement going to be for Inamoto, I don't have an answer for you. It's definitely not a foreign replacement. It has to be a local replacement. Who's going to step up? In that sense, looking forward to the SEA Games at the end of the year, some of these guys that will feature in those SEA Games, this is their chance to step up and show that, hey, you know what, I can fill the boots of Inamoto. I can do something on the flanks or whatnot. So maybe that is something to look forward to with the Young Lions.
Yeah, it seems like the opportunity is there for the taking. Who's going to step up to the mantle? Speaking of opportunity, Robert Iziako has been afforded a golden opportunity to lead Hougang United. He replaced Marko Krajevic and he will be leading the way for Hougang, hopefully to spark a revival. But can he provide that new manager bounce? Their fans certainly hope so.
Hi Raushan, I'm Confat from the Hougang contingent. I'd like to say that despite the tumultuous mid-season changes to staff and players, I expect our team to push our way into the top 4 in the league, because I feel that we have got quality locals and foreigners, even from the branch. And as for the SG Cup, anything can happen. We've had experiences being in the finals or semi-finals on a lot of occasions. So I expect us to be in the semis at least.
All right, with Hougang, let's start with the transfer activity. They parted ways with a host of Balkans, replacing them with 3 defenders and in 2 foreign arrivals, and as well as a certain Tajeli Salamat, right? Tightening up the defense is clearly a priority for Robert and team, but having done that with the signings they made, will they achieve that?
Yeah, it seems like Hougang are trying to build a tower at the Jalan Besar Stadium, because I think the 2 centre backs that they've signed, I think they are like 1.93 and 1.95 meter tall. So it sort of gives you a inkling of how they might set up. it's hard to tell with Hougang because you look at them on paper and it seems like they have the squad to compete, but it hasn't always translated on the pitch. But I think when you have players like Plazonia, you have players like Dejan Rasic up front, you've always got a chance in the game. And where do you need to be strong in? That's at the back. You keep out the goals, you score enough goals, you win the game. So that seems to be the straightforward mentality that Robert seems to be sort of trying to apply here at Hougang. Will it work? I think it remains to be seen because this is Robert's first high-level managerial job. I know he's had experience at SFL with Tiong Bahru, but this is a totally different job. You need to learn how to manage the players. They've got a bunch of experienced players there. He's got to manage them, but tricky. I think it's a bit tricky, but to me, Hougang is really a team I can't really figure out. I'm not sure how they'll do for the rest of the season.
I know you're half joking about the height of the foreign players they brought in, but they probably combined for the length of a floodlight or something, right? I want to talk about that third defender they've signed, this Tajeli Slamat. I don't want to get into the details of the checkered past that Tajeli has, but this almost seems like the last chance for him. Is it worth the gamble from Hougang?
Yeah, why not? I think we know his quality. Let's put it that way. Of course, discipline issues have come to the fore more than once. But I would love for him to sort of use this last chance, like you said, to really show that, I want to be someone who people talk about for my qualities rather than for my discipline issues. So he's got a chance here. He's got to grab it. And actually a lot, not just for Hougang, but a lot of players in the sort of lower half of the league, your Hougang, your Tanjung Pagar, they're all fighting for contracts. When the season ends, clubs will be on the lookout for some of these players, and this is your chance to put yourself out there. Do you want to just let this chance slip away and not play to your best, or do you want to continue playing the Singapore Premier League, be a professional footballer, and just go and earn your contract? Yeah,
I think that's a fantastic point. Let's move the conversation on to DPMM, who resumed their season on Monday in that 4-2 defeat to the Lion City Sailors at the Hassanal Bolkiah Stadium. We've seen the impact that Jamie McAllister has had since taking reins midway through the first half of the season, right? And it seems like the signings that they've made in the mid-season has given their fans fresh optimism as well. Here's Farida speaking to us all the way from Brunei.
Hi Roshan, good afternoon, and thank you for these opportunities. What do we expect? Yeah, we expect great things from the MMFC for the remainder of the season. With the addition of more experienced import players alongside the improved skill of our local talent, we do believe our team has the potential to finish in the top 3. We're also confident that the quality and determination we have seen on the field will propel us higher in the standing as the season progresses. I think that will be all isi hati peminat DPMM for this season.
Now, Deepan, we've had the chance to see DPMM in action in that clash against the Lion City Sailors on Monday. Is it too early to talk about impacts from their signings?
Yeah, I think one game is a bit too early to judge, but I must say I wasn't very impressed in that first game. But it's the first game back. I think it was a sluggish game. A lot of players didn't really look up to the pace. I must say that I'm expecting more from the Latvian striker. On paper, he seems to be scoring goals plenty. So Brunei DPMM will hope that he is able to sort of be the main focal point for the attack. Elsewhere, I think the defense really has to tighten up. I think the way they conceded those 4 goals against the Sailors, it can't be that way every week. So that's the area of concern for me.
Yeah, for me, I don't want to throw this very lazy punditry around, but there seems to be an age factor, and the Brunei DPMM backline is on the higher side of age, shall we say. So perhaps that's something they need to address. You talk about having a talisman up front in that striker. One talisman they will be missing for the foreseeable future, at least, is Hakimi Yazid, who, with reports are to be believed, is serving a suspension for some misdemeanors off the field. He's going to be a huge miss, isn't he?
For sure. I think every team needs a X-factor kind of player, and he was that for DPMM. Sometimes in games where DPM weren't really performing, he could really take the game by the scruff of the neck and really go for it in the attack. They'll miss that. I think he's got the pace, the speed, the finishing to really give Brunei DPM the edge, and then they'll miss that. Now the question is, how do they replace it? Miguel Oliveira on his day can be a great player, but as you saw against Sailors, when the team doesn't really do well, it doesn't really seem like he really steps up to the fore, so he needs to step up. I would say at the current moment he's their best player, so if Deepanraj to do well, Miguel Oliveira has to do well.
Well, time will tell how Miguel Oliveira and his teammates fare. We're almost halfway through the table. Thank you for joining Sports Minutes as Deepan and I build you up to part 2 of the Singapore Premier League season. Let's talk about Balestier, who've been busy in the market thus far. I say busy, all of it is in caps because they've had so many incomings as well as outgoings. But before we talk to Deepan about their transfer activity, let's hear from Tigers fan Marcin Wee.
Hi, my name is Marcin, and for the second half of the season for Balestier, I do hope that the form continues from the first half of the season, despite having many key players being out of the squad like Jordan and Sassi. I hope that they still maintain the style of play and having the identity that we all know who Balestier are now. More than just that, I do hope that they actually have a better defensive record, and hopefully with the defensive signing that we make, I think they do hope that they have an impact. And also, I think we identify that we have the lack of depth. We always have the same few subs. I think with fresh new faces coming in this transfer window, I hope that they can punch in depth and can give us options in the upcoming season itself.
All right, Deepan, there you have it. Marcin telling us about his ambitions for the team for the remainder of the season. But let's talk about the outs before we touch on the ins. How big a miss are Jordan Imaviwe and Ismail Sassi going to be?
Yeah, I think Ismail more than Jordan, simply because I really liked Ismail Sassi. I think he had a bit of a slow start to the season, but then we really saw the quality come to the fore. For Jordan Imaviwe, I think yes, his style will be a bit of a miss. I thought he was very comfortable on the ball, suited the style that Peter Diru employed at Balestier Khalsa. But based on what I hear about the replacement, I think he plays a very similar brand of football, and I heard that he's even very comfortable at attacking set pieces as well. So I think that might be more or less a like-for-like replacement, or even a better replacement at this point, because I think Jordan is still a developing player. So I'm referring to Deng, who's an Australian centre-back that might be coming in. I don't think it's been announced yet by Balestier Khalsa. I think elsewhere, I think they've got Abdul as well as a new signing for them. And I think, as I mentioned, Ismail Sassi being a miss. Like any good club will, I mean, when they let a player go, I'm sure they've lined up a replacement. This is not over the line yet, but I've seen glimpses of who their potential signing may be to replace Ismail Sassi. Of course, not a known name, but I've seen highlights and clips of him, and let's just say he looks very, very exciting.
Yeah, you talk about teasing us. That's one way to tease us. If you want to know who that player is, you need to be in a group chat with Deepan. Unfortunately, you touched on the players that are coming along in terms of Balestier. They've signed the Vietnamese goalkeeper on loan, Ho Tong Han. They brought in Abdul Karim, who's a veteran of the league. They also brought in Sheikh Faris, who makes the step up from Project Vault's Oxley Sports Club. I want to touch on that sort of a signing and what Darwin is doing at this club, right? It almost seems like, in terms of the noise they're making the right noises. So, Balestier, what can they expect in the second half of the season to consolidate the good work being done off the pitch?
Yeah, I think there are always plenty of talents in the ecosystem, especially lower down the Singapore Premier League, your SFL 1, your SFL 2. And I think it helps the Singapore football to sort of like dip into that area of Singapore football now and then to really get deserving players into Singapore Premier League teams. I don't know much about Sheikh Faris, I'll admit to that, but I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do. I think very often people talk about the disparity in quality between SFL and the Singapore Premier League. I don't think it's a fair statement to make. I do think there are quality players in those divisions. So I hope Sheikh Faris is one of them. I like what Darwin is doing with Balestier, giving these players a chance, because he's very well acquainted with the SFL. He's been a long time servant of that area of Singapore football. So long may that continue. I hope to see more players make the step up.
Yeah, absolutely right. And long may Balestier's football continue, because I think as casual observers, or neutral observers rather, we do enjoy the football that Balestier put out. Let's move it on to Albrecht Snigata, who, in case you needed reminding us, still SPL reigning champions. It looks unlikely that they will defend that title, but they've recovered well enough after a wobble in the first half of the season to sit fourth in the table. So what are the expectations of the fans? Let's check in with a member of the Swan Army to find out.
Okay, this is Swan Army member here. We from Swan Army always wish the best for Albrecht for this second half of the season. Continue putting your 100% effort, continue to play beautiful football as you always do. And of course, for the Singapore Cup, we hope that you go deep into the run and of course win the whole competition.
Deepan, only one place to start when it comes to Albrechts, and that's the departure of Arya Igami, who's also joined BG Tampines Rovers. A bit of a Japanese revolution going on in the East. We'll talk about that later, but coming to Albrechts, can they cope without him?
Yeah, I don't think he'll be a huge miss for Albrechts. I think, yes, he's impressed in spurts, but I think Albrechts can cover for him. It's more really about whether Albrechts can really continue to score the goals that they need. I know they've brought in a couple of new youth Japanese players from the college system. As you know, I mean, every time that happens, that player comes out to really star in the Singapore Premier League. So I'm waiting to see who these new recruits are and how they play for Albrechts.
Yeah, that's one of the storylines you always look forward to when Albrechts make signings, right? Can't wait to see if they've uncovered any gems. We talked about Albrechts Niigata and having that uptick in form after that wobble at the start. A big part of that is Keiji Shigeotomi, who has returned to the helm, replacing Kazuaki Yoshinaga. He obviously took charge midway through the first half. Now he's had this 2 months with the team. Do you think it's time we expect more from Albrechts because he's had that time in the training ground together with Marcel Trolls, I believe?
Yeah, for sure. I think they've sort of gone through an identity shift. I think they're a lot more direct as a team. But hey, who's complaining if you're getting the points and the results? I do like Albrechts' approach of being direct because I think it's brought them benefits. But I still want to see more from their foreign players. I think the earlier part of the season, a lot of them missed it through injury. For example, Otake comes to mind. If they can keep their foreigners fit, if Stevia Egbus can sort of find the form that he showed early on in his tenure at Albrechts, then I think Albrechts might be in for a good end to the season. Of course, I think a lot has to go their way. What I think really helped them was the signing of Ryan Stewart before the mid-season window. So if they can get him more gelled with the team, I think Albrechts can be a problem for other teams.
Yeah, and I'm sure the Swan Army will be hoping the same, right? They want to see Albrechts Niigata not necessarily be the all-conquering side, but in this transition year of going all local, try and get to grips with the new structure, so to speak of. We move on to the top three now, and it's time to talk about Geylang International. Here's Abdul Rahman from the Ultras Eagles sharing his thoughts.
Hi, I'm Abdul Rahman from the Ultras Eagles. This season has been fantastic for Geylang fans, and I'm really excited about the remainder of the season for Geylang International. Our team's form has been brilliant, and hoping that we can challenge the top two clubs and of course get that much needed win for the Eastern Derby.
Now, Deepan, with Geylang, we know all about their strong starting 11, but we've often wondered if depth will be an issue. With the sole arrival of Saifullah Akbar, which looks likely to be the only incoming, have they done enough to address the issue?
Yeah, I think the problem throughout the whole season has been the lack of depth for Geylang. I like the loan signing of Saifullah. I think he brings in the ability to play on the left or through the middle, where I think he's best at, or through on the right as well. We've even seen him at fullback before. So fills a couple of positions. I think that sort of helps them, but I think you look at Geylang and every time they are missing a player in defense, whether it's Shakir or Joshua Pereira or one or the other, they seem to have a drop in quality, and I think it shows. So it's going to be tough for them to sort of hold on to third place. I hope they do, because I think they are the league leading scorers, if I'm not wrong. I think they scored like a heck amount of goals, more than any other team in the league, I believe. I think it's 70, if I'm not wrong. In 20 games.
A bit of trivia for you. You're absolutely right. 70. That's why they call you Le Professor.
Nice. So I think goals is not going to be a problem for them, Raushan, but can they keep the goals out from the back? And that's a big issue if they're not able to have that starting 11 week in, week out.
No, you're absolutely right. And Coach Mohammad Noor Ali alluded to this when I spoke to him on Sports Minutes. I urge you to go check out that episode because he addressed the issue of consistency, which was a problem for Geylang in the first half of the season. You touched on it there, but just to dive a little deeper, Coach Mohammad Noor Ali obviously said, we want to challenge the top two for the remainder of the 12 games in the league, right? But is that realistic, or should they then concentrate on just consolidating third position? Because all things considered, it would be some achievement to finish in the top three.
Yeah, for sure. But I don't think the approach would be going out to tell the players like, let's hold on to third spot. I think it's a case of let's get as many points as possible and see where we end up. That's got to be the approach. I think they have got the quality to really go and really go and show the other teams that they've got the goals in them to win games. And when you go into games like that, teams are wary. Hey, we need to be a bit tight at the back. And that sometimes can become an advantage for you, because the more teams are wary, the more confidence you have as a team to attack them. So I think that's got to be their focus, to score as many goals as possible in their matches and hope that their defense remains tight.
And on the topic of scoring, quick question with regards to Geylang International and one man who scores bulk of their goals, Tomyuki Doi. He's on course to break the all-time record, right? Do you think he'll do it?
Yep, I think he'll do it.
All right, I'm sure Geylang fans are hoping he's, I think, on 33 goals. The all-time record is 38. It looks very much within his sight to do that. Speaking of looking up, they're looking up at BG Tampines Rovers, who sit in second, 5 points ahead of them. It's been a transitional, and I used the word busy earlier for Balestier, but it's been busy for BG Tampines Rovers as well, who of course bid farewell to Boris Kapitovic. How will that shake up the title race? Here's what their fans are expecting.
Hi Raushan, I'm expecting Tampines to secure the title in the second half of the season. It'll be interesting to see how we play our attack without Boris Kapitovic, but I'm looking forward to seeing whether Sia Kunori steps forward from his second striker role into the primary role he had at Albrechts Negata, given that we've signed former Young Lions striker Isuki Enomoto to the squad. But I think us fans have to be prepared to see some shaky games before the team gets into the groove and becomes a rejuvenated title-winning squad.
So Kopi out, Enomoto in, an ideal replacement, you think?
Yeah, I think when you look at how Tampines play, it seemed to come to a point where Boris was almost like not a great fit for them. I have to address the fact that, yes, he's been scoring the goals for BG Tampines, and his record for Tampines is obscene, let's put it that way. But in terms of style, in terms of fit, I think Enomoto is a better fit for them. I know people will disagree with me, saying that goals are goals, and Boris sort of is like what we mentioned earlier, X factor, something different. But I think with the way BG Tampines play, they needed a more mobile forward up front, and that's what they get in Enomoto.
And you talk about that identity, we all know what we sign up for when we watch a Gavin Lee team, but the addition of Igami, you throw Kunori into the equation, and then you add Inamoto, there seems to be a real Japanese flair going on. Can Gavin Lee coach the best out of these boys in terms of pushing them towards the title?
Yeah, so I think with Arya Igami, what they are getting is more depth on the flanks. I think Faris has been good this season. I think Seiya Kunori has been good this season. So with the addition of Arya Igami and Inamoto, I think what they're really getting is the ability to rotate amongst the front line. And I think that's how Tampines play. There's a lot of rotation in between the lines. And I think this is really, really going to be a strength for them in this second part of the season. And the thing is, it's not easy, Raushan, for players to just come in and straight away hit the ground running. I think you will have to see them sort of like bet in a bit. Players got to understand each other better. Just because they're Japanese doesn't mean it will translate onto the pitch very well. So it remains to be seen how fast they gel. But once they do, I think it's going to be a problem for SPL defenses.
You talk about finding a rhythm, finding momentum, right? A bulk of the BG Tampines Rovers players were involved in the ASEAN Championship as well, and that includes head coach Gavin Lee as well. Will fatigue at all play a part, a deciding factor in the title race in terms of mental fatigue as well as physical fatigue, you think?
I think at some point, surely, it's been a long season, something that the players are not used to, especially national team players. I think by the time the season ends, the amount of games that they've clocked up will be more than ever in their career. So injuries then come into play when there's fatigue. More mistakes happen when you have fatigue. So then it's almost like a bit of an advantage for the way Tampines play, because they control games. So when you control games, in a sense, there is a lesser tendency to sort of make the mistakes because your opponents are running a bit more than you do. So that might also be an advantage to Tampines. Maybe I'm being a bit more positive in how I think about it. But for sure, to answer your question, I think all the teams across the league, especially Lions D Sailors and especially BG Tampines Rovers, will suffer from fatigue at some point. It's about whether the other teams are able to sort of make that to their advantage.
I'm loving this fresh impetus and fresh energy you're bringing. I talk about the fans being excited. You clearly in the hot seat are very excited. We've talked about all 8 teams in the league. There's just one team left to talk about. That's the team sitting in pole position at the moment, the Lion City Sailors. They got off to a bright start to 2025, 2 wins from 2 games, one in the Shopee Cup and then in the Singapore Premier League. But will Ranko & Co. live up to expectations? Here's Eddie Hirono from Sailor Fan Talk sharing his thoughts.
Hey Raushan, thanks for having me on the show. Amazingly, our Sailors are still in 4 competitions, so I think we're all up for an exciting second half of the season. Continentally, I think we're all just delighted to be on this great journey, where we take on the best in the region. And I'd say, really, no expectations. Let's just see how far the team can take us on this adventure. However, domestically, I think the expectation is that we must win the league. A club with our resources, with our quality, I think the minimum is to win the league. And I'm sure management feels that way too. So, barring a terrible injury crisis, I don't see why we can't do it. And these might seem like strong words, but anything else will be a failure. Anything other than a league win.
Eddie never want to mince his words, and he ends off his note by saying anything other than the league will be a failure. Do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely agree. I said this at the start of the season. I mean, the resources that they have, they have to be winning the league. They sit in quite a comfortable position at the moment, but I'm sure they'll be looking over at the incomings at BG Tampines and sort of like feeling, hey, we might be under pressure for the rest of the season. But no, I think Sailors have just too much quality at the end of the day. What Rankovic has done is sort of has made them a bit more resolute as a team, and that might be the winning factor for them.
Clearly, you have chosen to be optimistic this morning, because in episodes gone by, you might not have chosen such a positive word as resolute, but that's a conversation for another day. I want to touch on fatigue. The Lion City Sailors are involved in the Shopee Cup, involved in the ACL competition. They're involved in the league as well. As Eddie alluded to, they're still in 4 competitions. You throw in the Singapore Cup in the mix. It's a bit of a moot question considering they're the richest club in Singapore, but do they have the squad to deal with it in terms of players, the best 11 players?
Yeah, it's a bit of a similar case where, at some point fatigue will tell. Just to sort of go back to the previous answer to answer this question is, when you say that when I say that they're resolute, I think also what comes to mind as well is the fact that because they have let slip leads in other competitions. It has to be a learning lesson, right? I mean, if it happens once, it happens twice, you make sure it doesn't happen a thrice or 4 times. So I think it sort of almost reminds the players that, hey, we can't let it slip anymore. So in that sense, you become a bit more resolute as a team, where you tell yourself, okay, at certain point 3-1, 3-0, we really close shop. You sort of have started to see that in the way they do things. They were leading 4-2 against Brunei DPMM, and they took a very laid-back, slow approach, slowed things down, leading 4-2 and were keeping the ball in the corner and stuff like that. So I feel they have been learning lessons there, which makes them a bit more resolute as a team. I don't think they will be wanting to lose leads anymore. So yeah, I think for all the questions about depth and whatnot, I think what really has changed is from the experience. They are better for it. And I think it will show in the second part of the season.
Yeah, it's almost like they're a bit street smarter, knowing how to deal with these difficult situations. And I don't think the Sailors fans will complain if it's points over performances that they get to push them closer to the title. There you have it, all 9 teams discussed and dissected. Thank you so much to all the fans who got in touch with your hopes for your respective teams. We do this for you and we want to get you involved. So I hope Sports Minutes will continue to provide you the good company all throughout the SPL season. Deepan, just a couple of things left to do before we go. Haven't put you under the spot for a while, so let's do predictions, starting with the Lion City Sailors against Albrechts Negata. That's happening Friday, 17th of Jan at 7:45 p.m.
I see Sailors get the win.
Okay, and then on Saturday, there are 2 games starting with the Young Lions and Tanjong Pagar.
Tanjong Pagar will get the win.
Okay, I'm sure Noor Alam Shah is already plotting how he can get one over to get his reign onto a winning start. Moving on to the next game on Saturday, Geylang International travel to Brunei DPMM.
Yeah, I think this one might end in a draw.
Okay, and then to round off the resumption of the SPL, it's Hougang taking on Balestier Khalsa on Sunday at 6 p.m.
Very hard to tell. Like I say, we don't know what to expect from Hougang, but I think that Hougang might just edge this one.
Wow. Okay. And finally, Deepan, one last thing left to do. I'd like to get your boldest prediction for the remainder of the season.
Tough. I think the easiest one to sort of say might be that Young Lions don't get more than 3 wins for the rest of the season.
I was afraid. I thought you were going to say points. Here's my boldest prediction. I say this is Haris Harun's final 6 months in club football.
Wow, very bold.
It is very bold. It might come back and bite me in a very uncomfortable place. But anyway, fans, we'd love to hear your boldest prediction, so do get in touch with me on social media. Deepanraj Ganesan, as ever, it's good to have you back in the hot seat. Can't wait to review the action on Monday.
Thank you.
Sports Minutes on Money FM 89.3.